But for those of us who have been in Christian culture for a long time, there's a term that maybe you've heard. It's called generational sin. And in anyone that's grown up, I think through the Frank Peretti years or the over-spiritualized years where spiritual warfare was on the tip of everyone's tongue and there was a demon under every bush, we've looked at that term and we felt it loaded with some supernatural reality that sometimes it has, but more than often, it is just the consequences of our own choices that play out through generations. I'll give you an example of that from my own life before I go into this story. And in my own life, in my own family history, since we're talking about family history here today, in my own family history, on just one side of my family, I can look at my father's side of the family, and I can look and I can see that in 5 generations, there's not one single intact marriage. That single thing of divorce played out through 5 generations, you can bet it has an impact. You can bet that the consequences of all of that brokenness flow down the stream and affect me. And when we look at that and we look at the reality of generational sin, I also want to say that there's a reality of generational virtue. That when we make right choices and good choices, that spills out in generation over generation too. Again, not because we have no choice, but because the influence of it is powerful. So let me say that again, the influence of choices are powerful for generations, but they are not absolute determiners of our behavior or actions. We get to make choices. So if you are looking back over your family history, and I'll tell you this, as we look over the history of Joseph's family, and we look at all of the choices made and all of the consequences, if we had this determinate thinking in our mind that those choices will make my choices for me, then Joseph's story makes no sense because he breaks generational sin over and over again. He breaks that power. And I want to say to all of you here today, you can too. Because we have a good God. Those are 3 points that I want you to think about as we are walking through this. And if I could just put it more aptly, God uses the imperfect to accomplish the perfect will that he has set for us.